Hello, I'm Marvin Casalan, and I'm going to present my paper, The Nominal Marking System of Kinaray-a. So, Kinaray-a is an Austronesian language under Malayo-Polynesian, Central Philippine, Visayan West, according to Ethnologue. Kinaray-a is derived from Iraya, meaning upstream, ka, companion, and an infix in, meaning to have undergone something. It is also known as Hiraya, Hiniray-a, Karay-a, and sometimes Hamtikanon or Antikenyo. So, Kinaray is the language of Karaya people who live in the different provinces of Antique, Capiz, Guimaras, Iloilo, Palawan, and some mountainous areas bordering Aklan and Antique provinces. So there are around 333,000 speakers according to the UNSD in 2005. But according to NOLASCO, there are around 1.3 million speakers in 2008. And Kinaray-a speakers outnumber Hiligaynon in Panay Island, as the actual number of Kinaray-a speakers is undetermined because the language has long suffered from being classified as Ilonggo or Hiligaynon. Antique is located in Panay Island in Western Visayas, in the middle part of the Philippines. And this is the place where Kinaray-a people are living. So it has also 18 municipalities, as you can see on the right portion of the map. So for this language, there were several studies on Kinaray-a grammar that had been conducted, and to name a few, we have Aison, the study of Lazo, Manueli, Tondares, and Amerila. For this paper, I'm going to present the Kinaray-a nominals and describe the nominal marking system of the language. Specifically, I will give emphasis on the constituent order of a typical Kinaray-a NP, the types of nominal markers used in the language, and the functions of these nominal markers. For the Kinaray-a variety, in this study, I actually utilize the variety spoken in the southern part of Antique province. For the 4 months, they were at least 18 years old, native Kinaray-a speakers, and they can actually read and write in Kinaray-a. For the corpus, I utilized spoken and written. For the spoken ones, we have daily conversations, homilies. Also, I recorded narratives of pair stories, cooking dishes, treating illnesses, and I also made use of some online news reports and literary works for the written corpus. For the data analysis, ergative case marking is used in the analysis of the utterances. As we all know, Kinaray-a behaves in an ergative construction. So the system of glosing is summarized as follow. In the first line is the data, the second line is the gloss, and the free translation of the utterance in the third line. So, according to data, an NP contains a noun or a pronoun as a head of the phrase. This characterization of NP is also evident in Kinaray-a. So, a Kinaray-a NP may contain a determiner and a head noun. And Kinaray-a nominal markers take the initial position of NPs. So, for the types of markers that introduce NPs, we have actually two, the determiner and demonstrative. So for determiner, we have, for example, ang bata, and for demonstrative, diya nga bata. So we have ang for the first utterance and the ja as demonstrative in the second utterance. Nominal markers take the initial position in the nominalized clauses. Like for example, ang ginhambal nanda, or what they said. And the other is ang ginahindian na. So we have the determiner ang in this sample utterances. Kinaray-a NPs require a ligature to connect the nominal marker and the modifier to the head noun. And actually, it is different with English where modifier might be placed right before the head noun. So like for example, ang manami nga panahon. So panahon here is introduced by a ligature and we cannot actually say ang manami panahon. Unlike English, like it's a nice weather. So in Kinaray-a, it requires a ligature before the head noun. But there were some cases in which NPs do not need nominal markers. Like for example, a vocative construction like Ginoo kaloy kami or Lord have mercy on us. Also in answering to a question, like for example, ano ngaran mo or what's your name? So the answer here is LV. So we do not need to have the determiner for this construction. Like other Philippine languages do, determiners in Kinaray-a encode number, like for example, singular or plural, case, so either absolutive or ergative or genitive, and oblique or locative, and distinguish between common and personal nouns. So on screen are the different Kinaray-a determiners, and these determiners can be marked as to whether absolutive, ergative, genitive, oblique, locative. Also, this can be classified into common or personal determiners. So for the determiner ang, it may precede a single word. It can also introduce an abstract noun, a relativized clause, a verb-like item, an adjective, a preposition, and an honorific. For the core nominal markers, they actually introduce core arguments in a clause. If the core argument is a full noun phrase, it is usually introduced by a determiner. For example, nagpanaw ang bata or the child walked away. Otherwise, it may utilize an absolute enclitic pronominal. For example, nagpanaw tana. So notice here that there's no a determiner before the word tana because the utterance use enclitic pronominal unlike the first example. For transitive constructions, the agent and the patient may co-occur with each other. Note that the common determiner kang or ka and personal determiner ni introduce the agent and the determiner ang introduces the patient. For example, ginkaon kabata ang peras or the child ate the pear. And ginsuksok ni Andre ang bayo or Andre wore the shirt. Notice here that the noun bata is introduced by the determiner ka and not ni. So we cannot say ginkaon ni bata ang peras and ginsoksok ka Andre ang bayo. When the pronominal counterpart is used, the agent is represented by an ergative and the patient is represented by absolutive. For example, ginturok na ang kanding nga nagapanaw. And for the oblique nominal marker sa usually precedes locative nouns. For example, duro gemstones or duro gemstone nga ang makita sa suba. or lainggid ang pangabuhi sa uma. So we have sa suba or in the river or sa uma, same in the farm. Oblique nominal marker also signify temporal marker like specific time and day in an oblique phrase. For example, sanag ang mga bituon sa kagabihan. And nominal marker sa can also function as oblique in benefactive case. For example, nagtugro tana kabugas sa mga katawhan or he or she gave rise to the people. For nominal marker C, as in singular and the counterpart sanday, the marker C is the counterpart of ang for personal nouns. It marks the particular absolutive personal argument. For example, nahulog si Mark sa kahoy. And the plural counterpart of C is sanday. So we have sanday, nanay, kag tatay lang ang tao sa balay, or only mother and father are at home. The nominal marker ni is the counterpart of ka or kang for personal nouns, serving as the agent of transitive verb or as the possessor in a possessive construction. For example, ginkaon ni Razel ang pagkaon ni Eliza. For core demonstratives, or deictic pronoun in the Philippine languages are generally divided into three sets expressing nearness to the speaker, nearness to the addressee, and the remoteness from either. So that's according to McFarland. The same feature is also evident in Kinaray-a. So these are the different demonstrative of Kinaray-a language, and again, they can be marked as absolutive, ergative, or oblique. For spatial orientation, they can be marked as proximal, medial, or distal, depending on the distance. So Kinaray-a speakers use the emphatic form amo with ja or this to form the proximal absolutive deictic pronoun. For example, amo ja ang akon bata. Actually, we can also say ja ang akon bata, but if you want to use amo as emphatic form, you can add the word amo before ja. Okay, we also have raay ang amon nga balay. So, raay is marked as media. For the morphological formation of nouns, according to data, bare nouns are an affixed common names of places, objects, and things. So, for example, in Kinaray-a language, although there are several bare nouns, for this presentation, I'm going to present only the body parts, like for example, butkon, which means arm, irok or armpit in English, likod or back, and others. Kinaray language also has borrowed nouns. So Spanish and English loaned words are present in Kinaray-a. So for example, amigo, which means friend, is Spanish origin. We have domingo or Sunday, or comedor or dining room, which is also Spanish origin. Mayor, salacet are among the examples of borrowed or loan words which are presently used in Kinaray-a. Affixed nouns in Kinaray-a may be formed by affixation. When the roots or stems are attached to nominal affixes, they will form derived nouns. So this process of derivation is called nominalization. Derived nouns are usually formed when a nominal affix is attached to a noun or a verb. So in this presentation, I use the affix ka as affix for the word subo, which means sad, to form kasubo. So kasubo means sadness. It is interesting to note that the meaning of affixed ka in the first example is an abstract concept, whereas the ka in the second example is a reciprocal action for the root istorya, which means to talk. If you are going to attach the affix ka in the word istorya, it will become ka-istorya, which means a person you are talking to. So there are other several affixes that can be attached to Kinaray-a nouns to form another word. Okay, for the reduplication, um, the repetition of syllables of a root or of the whole root to form a nominal is a common characteristic of nominal formations in Philippine languages. The most frequent kind of reduplication in Kinaray-a nominals is the full reduplication. For example, balay-balay, which means a playhouse, or tarak-tarak, which means a toy truck. So in summary, this paper, I had presented the two types of Kinaray-a nominal markers. We have the determiners and the demonstratives. These determiners are ang or ka or kang and sa for common nouns, which are basically singular but they can be made plural by adding the plural marker mga. And the si, ni, and kai for personal nouns and their plural forms are sanday, nanday, and kanday respectively. So for the determiners ka and kang, they are actually interchangeable. The paper also highlighted the types of deictic pronouns based on the spatial orientation. We have proximal, medial, and distal, which can be marked as absolutive, ergative, and oblique. Morphological formation of Kinaray-a nominals have also been presented in this paper, like bare nouns, borrowed nouns, affixed nouns, and reduplication. Okay, that ends of my presentation. Durug-durugin nga salamat.